good day. The point of being a chosen one, or being one of the Rainbow Warriors, or the 144,000, whatever you want to call us, is finding that narrow path and walking it firmly. So can we walk too narrow of a path? You know, if it's a single file path, can we really unite all together, or can we only have the person behind us and the person ahead of us? And yes, I do believe that you can walk too narrow of a path. Walking a path that is full of dogma that you don't fully understand. The church tries to teach people all these dogmas to follow, and so they're following all these things that are making their path so narrow that nobody can walk with them. And anybody that they see walking on their own, they're judging them for all of their pathologies. And I know that as far as dogma, I'm allergic to dogma. However, my morals and ethics, I want to walk as narrow of a path and be as honest with myself as possible. And so, yeah, there is the fact that we have dogmas that make us walk such a narrow path that we'll never be able to unite. And I think that's what the church can do, and that's what people that can get in their little groups and decide their dogmas and their things that they follow, and decide that anyone outside of their group is lesser spiritually because they don't follow them, right? So as one of the Rainbow Warriors, as one of the chosen ones, I have to realize is the path that I've chosen for myself is going to be so narrow that you're going to be let down if you set that high a bar for everyone else. And we have to have patience for people. And that's something that I'm still battling with. And, I think that as we are acting out our narrow path around people and being very honest about them and explaining, if we're actually explaining how we perceive a moral or interpret morals, or if we're telling people this is what I think is moral, be very careful with how you say that. And this is something I've learned is to be like, this is my path, and we all create our own narrow paths. However, this is something that I believe is the line to follow. And they can either talk you out of that idea, or find a middle ground between what their thought is on that moral. And so classically myself, as a very paternal person, I will likely make too narrow of a path. That's the problem with somebody that's very paternal and lacks the maternal. And what I'm learning to do is become more maternal. So what I've noticed is more maternal people have, especially logical maternal people, like people that have very logical things to say about why my path is too narrow, have helped me to unite with more people and help me to have patience for people that haven't seen that yet, because we are in a society that has created a very wide path, or a highway to hell, It's a stairway to heaven, and it's a lot of steps, and it's a lot of work, and most people ride the highway to hell. It's fast, and it's as many lanes as Satan will build for us. So I'm going to church today, and I like going to this church because it allows me to speak. And I wanted to speak upon this topic. I wanted to just ask out loud to the church if anybody wants to get together and start to talk about unification. Talk about how we can unite and what ideas that we carry or dogmas that we carry that are causing us to not allow people to walk with us. And I want to be called out on things that I am off on, as I want to teach people around what conclusions I've come up with. You have to understand that when you're being a Unitarian, you're going to be the odd man out. Because if you're sitting between two groups and you're trying to speak for both groups, then you could likely just be the one that both sides don't want to hang out with. Because you're trying to speak a truth that they may not want to hear. And that's why I want to explain to people that we need to be able to be centered and calm, to be able to get together and talk about these parts of ourselves and these parts of our groups and our religions that we need to, burn off and grow some new limb. So the masculine part of myself knows there's certain things I will not tolerate over and over and over again without people recognizing and repenting for the things that they've done or the things that they're doing. Because if a person's not able to admit that they're doing a certain thing, or if we are not able to find a center ground in our beliefs, then we can't share an environment. If a person that's vaccinated is so crazy about their necessity to be around only people that are vaccinated, then that's how it works. Those are certain dividing lines that don't allow us to share an environment. My heart cries out to unite the polarities and to unite the genders, the energy of the genders, because a lot of the times the polarities or the way that we perceive things are half full or half empty. We're actually talking about the same thing. So the feminine part of myself wants to understand that I'm wrong in some of my thinking so that I can have more people stand with me. However, it needs to come with logical and reasonable ideas for why I'm wrong. And some things in some situations we do have to understand is there's things that are just not able to be understood. And for those things, for those dogmas, for example, that don't seem to have logic but have been passed down for such a long time, some things maybe we should just keep. Because it's kind of like the Chesterton's fence. So if you have these guys are walking through the woods and they come up to a fence in the middle of the woods. And they're like, what's this fence doing here? And they look around and they're like, they couldn't figure out why this thing is here. And one of the guys like, well, let's take this thing down. It doesn't need to be here. And the other guy's like, well, we don't know that it doesn't need to be here. So until we understand that, maybe we shouldn't take down the fence. Just be very careful with how much separatism and pain that fence will cause before you take it out. They used to just remove certain parts of the body because they thought they didn't need it. So we do have to be careful with removing dogmas that could have some esoteric or mystical reason why we do it. Should we judge other people that they don't follow dogmas, that we're not able to have logical or reasonable justification for making judgments upon them? No, we shouldn't. So it's all up to what people want to do. A lot of people want to follow every single dogma just in case. Go for it. Just don't judge anybody outside of yourself for not doing those dogmas. And be very honest with yourself if you start to play that game, and even in your own head, because then you might be living through egotism rather than spirituality, and you might be using religiosity and dogma as a way to put yourself on an ivory tower rather than being truthfully spiritual. So everybody, God bless, and have a lovely Sunday. Much love.